Alright guys, we're heading into a 3-game week. We've got championship action coming up in midweek, and that's what we're here to discuss in today's video. Plenty to touch on with all the action to digest from over the weekend. Do get all your thoughts on those matches in the comments down below, especially at the bottom of the championship. It was an absolutely mental weekend, and right now it's really anyone's guess who's going to go down. Once again, some huge games coming up in midweek, and as always I want to get your thoughts on them in the comments down below. And without any further ado, let's jump in. Starting out at Ewood Park, it's a big game at the bottom between Blackburn and Millwall. A massive game with implications at the bottom of the championship. Both sides tied on 39 points right now, and I mean, what an upturn in form it's been from Millwall over these past couple of matches since the return of Neil Harris. Back-to-back wins in two quite tricky matches against Southampton away and then Watford at home. Zian Fleming's early strike in that game being the difference between both sides, and going up against the Rovers side now, where wins have been quite few and far between of late. They were guilty of a slow start against Swansea, which ultimately cost them in that one, despite an improvement as the game went on. These 3-game weeks from now until the end of the season will be absolutely decisive in who goes down. And you know what? I do have a gut feeling this one's going to be quite tight. If I had to back either side on form right now, it would probably be Millwall, but I think I'm swaying towards a draw in this fixture. 1-1 I'm going between these two, which wouldn't be the worst result in the world for Millwall, considering they have won their last two. Next then to Coventry up against Rotherham. Coventry's playoff hopes have taken quite the battering in recent weeks. It's back-to-back defeats for them in two quite tough games that they've had against Preston and West Brom. This has to be the moment where they do bounce back, and I mean, they're going to have to be really consistent between now and the end of the season to claw back that 5-point deficit that currently sits between themselves and the top 6. This is a decent opportunity to do so against a Rotherham side who, let's face it, have looked down and out for a few months now. It's now 7 consecutive defeats for Rotherham in the Championship. Another loss over the weekend against Sheffield Wednesday. Don't get me wrong, I do think there will be a few surprising results in there for Rotherham from now until the end of the season. They very nearly took points away from Ipswich not long ago, let's not forget. With that being said, going with my head on this prediction, I do think Coventry will get back to winning ways. Score prediction there, I'm going to go 2-0 Cov. Next then we go to Hull up against Birmingham. Obviously as a Preston fan, I got to see Hull up close and personal over the weekend as they travelled to Deepdale. Ended as a goalless draw, but I actually thought it was quite an entertaining game. Quite a few moments of that match where it was back and forth. Both sides having decent chances to win it. Certainly thought it was North End more in the second half who were knocking on the door trying to go for that winner, but Hull made themselves really difficult to break down, and what a performance it was by Jacob Greaves at the back, I've got to point out. For all the attacking quality that Hull had on show in that game, I really thought he was their star of that one. For Hull, it does mean that it's 5 games unbeaten and just about hanging on to that spot in 6th place at the moment, albeit Norwich are knocking on the door right now. For Blues, it's back-to-back defeats, but a devastating way to lose that one against Southampton over the weekend. A 7-goal thriller. Ultimately, they were hit by that sucker punch late on. It is back-to-back defeats for them, like I say, but they have come through some pretty tough matches recently. I fancy this one to be quite tight. Just got a feeling Hull may sneak it with that extra bit of quality. Score prediction there. Going to go 1-0 to the Tigers. Don't think there'll be too much in it though. A big game with implications at the top and bottom. Next up, it's Leeds up against Stoke. Huddersfield did manage to put an end to that relentless Leeds unbeaten streak, but can Leeds get back to winning ways in this one against Stoke? It's an interesting matchup right now. Felt like for Stoke heading into the weekend against Middlesbrough that Schumacher was potentially a bit of a dead man walking, especially had they lost that game. In the end, they managed to claw a result out, a 2-0 victory. They're still in the bottom 3, but my God, are things tight around there at the moment, and a few more performances and results like that from now until the end of the season, and they just might be able to get out of this mess. With that being said, I do think this will be an incredibly difficult matchup. While Leeds weren't at their fluid and firing best against Huddersfield, generally speaking at Ellen Road they've been so tough to play against, and especially if that crowd gets up and behind them and Leeds get a goal or two early on, I do still think this will be a really difficult game for Stoke regardless of the result over the weekend. Maybe in a similar line of thinking to what happened when Stoke went away to Leicester, I just have a feeling that Leeds may be in that sort of mood to put down a statement victory in this one after the frustrations of Huddersfield last time. So score prediction for me in there, I'm going to go 4-0 Leeds. I really have a feeling they may bounce back in emphatic style. After that, to Hillsborough for Sheffield Wednesday up against Plymouth. And what a massive game this is with implications at the bottom of the Championship. Now, Wednesday fans looking at the actual league table will probably feel they've not made that much progress of late. Despite winning 4 of their last 5 matches, they're still rooted to that spot in 23rd as a result of so many sides around them also picking up their form of late. But this positive momentum, I think, can only be a good thing. It was a much needed win for them over the weekend against Rotherham. Ugbo proving to be the difference in that one, as he has in most games for Wednesday of late. He's now got 6 goals in his last 5 matches. And do you know what? This is probably a decent time to be playing Plymouth, who have been pretty spotty in their overall record of late under Ian Foster. Still not completely figured out, I don't think, their identity under him. They have come through some tough matches recently, let's not forget, in terms of the fixture list. But Plymouth, one of those sides who really could be dragged back into this scrap with some upcoming games. Score prediction for me in this one, I think I'm edging it towards Wednesday, 2-1 Wednesday, I'm going in that game, which would be a massive result at the bottom. After that, we head to the Stadium of Light for Sunderland up against Leicester. Leicester fans, are you starting to feel a little bit nervous now? That's 3 consecutive defeats, and Ipswich have narrowed the gap at the top of the table down to just 3 points. Would this be one of the biggest bottle jobs in Championship history if Leicester weren't to go up in the top 2, considering the lead they had just a few weeks ago? I really thought this game over the weekend against QPR would be the moment where Leicester clicked back into gear. It didn't prove to be the case, and now every game following on from that, I think, is ramped up with a lot more pressure for Leicester. With that being said, I do think this is a decent opportunity and time to be playing Sunderland, who seem to be in limbo right now. They've got 47 points on the board, too many to be worrying about any relegation fears or anything like that. But ultimately, it's a 9-point gap now between themselves and the top 6. And with Jack Clark now sitting on the sidelines, I don't think anyone can see them making up that point deficit between themselves and the teams above them. So they're sort of in limbo from now until the end of the season. And having lost their last 4 consecutive matches, they're on an even worse run than Leicester are at this stage. Honestly, drawing this one wouldn't surprise me. I think I'm just edging it towards Enzo Maresca's side. Really feel like they have to get over the line in this one, or the pressure will be seriously cranked up on them by the sides below. So score prediction in this one, going to go 2-1 Leicester, but it'll be tight. After that, we head to Ipswich up against Bristol City, and with Ipswich making it 5 wins on the bounce, they've seriously cranked the pressure up on Leicester above them, now narrowing it down to just a 3-point gap between themselves and the Foxes. Who saw that come in just a few weeks ago, where Ipswich themselves were having a bit of a dodgy run? That all seems to be put behind them, and I think most people will probably be backing them against the Robins in this one. Bristol City, a side who just continue to confuse me week to week. I thought that they might have had the edge over Cardiff at the weekend, but that didn't prove to be the case. To be fair to Bristol City, they always seem to pop up with a result and performance when you least expect it, and I think the way they set up, or at least the way they can be decent on the counter-attack, sometimes they can be a little bit more ruthless against the top sides than playing the teams below them. With all that being said, Ipswich are in really good goal-scoring form right now, and at Portman Road, I think I have to back them as the favourites. Score prediction for me in this one, I'm going to go 3-0 to the Tractor Boys. Fancy a few more goals to be scored there. Next up, we go to Cardiff up against Huddersfield, and expecting a pretty competitive matchup in this one. Cardiff managed to put together back-to-back wins for the first time since October, as they walked away with all 3 points against Bristol City over the weekend. A set piece making the difference in that game, and certainly wouldn't be surprised if a set piece or 2 makes the difference in this game as well. So far this season, Cardiff have been the most efficient side from scoring from set piece situations, and Huddersfield aren't too far behind in that statistic either. For Huddersfield, I thought it was a good result last time out against Leeds United. Did fancy them to get a point from that game, and in the end they went ahead and did so. Really had to hold on in that second half, playing with 10 men after that hog red card, but defended their box really well. And this is now a Huddersfield side who have only lost 2 of their last 9 matches. With that being said, they've not managed to put any room between themselves and the relegation zone because of the upturn in form of so many sides around them lately. Both them and Stoke tied on 38 points right now. I do fancy this one to be quite a tight game as well. Cardiff have turned around their fortunes with back-to-back wins after enduring quite an inconsistent run themselves. But I can't write Huddersfield off right now. It's been a while since I last backed a Huddersfield win, so why not? Let's go for it. 2-1 Huddersfield on the road, I'll say there, but that one really could go either way. Next up then to the Riverside for Middlesbrough up against Norwich, and it really feels like Middlesbrough's season has flatlined in recent weeks with 4 defeats from their last 5 matches. They're now only 6 points above the relegation zone. While it shouldn't take that many more points to get them over the line, they are looking like a side who are in a bit of a free fall right now, and it felt like that result against Leicester a couple of weeks ago is a long distant memory right now. This game certainly won't be easy either against the Norwich side who are chomping at the bit trying to get into the top 6. Did manage to make up a little bit of ground on Hull this weekend as well, with Norwich beating Sunderland and obviously Hull themselves dropping points. If Norwich are going to get over the line this season, they do need to improve their away form. They've only won 4 of their 17 away matches up until this point. It really has been their excellent record at Carrow Road which has been keeping them up and amongst the playoff conversation, but with how flat Middlesbrough have looked recently, and especially with their poor record at home to counter as well, I think I have to be edging towards a Norwich win here. Score prediction for me, I'm going to go 2-1 Norwich in that game. Next then we go to Southampton up against Preston, and boy did Southampton need that result over the weekend. They just about got over the line against Birmingham, and I mean, credit to them, Russell Martin's men have built up this reputation throughout the season of popping up with moments, whether it's equalisers or last minute winners, continually throughout the season, and that bit of luck that they've perhaps needed at times to get them over the line has been on their side. This, I think, will be a really interesting matchup going against a North End side who I think it's fair to say are one of the form teams in the Championship right now. Really good battle for Preston over the weekend, I thought, with Hull City. Really could have gone either way. Did think that North End shaded things in the second half and were looking like the more likely side to push on for a winner, but Hull managed to defend really well. See this being a quite similar game actually. Southampton will be looking to build the ball out from the back as Hull were, and I thought that Preston actually got quite a bit of joy by pressing Hull quite high up. Ali McCann especially I thought was absolutely brilliant at winning the ball back in midfield. Southampton tend to make the pitch really big and can make it difficult for you, especially at St Mary's, with how much teams are chasing the ball at times. So Preston potentially running out of gas could be an element coming into this one, but do you know what? I fancy us for a point in this one right now. Southampton not quite at their best either. Score prediction in that one, going to go for a 1-1 draw. After that we head to Watford up against Swansea, and Swansea will probably be fancying their chances right now. It is a decent time to be playing Watford, who are looking a bit down and out on their confidence. Ishmael tried to tweak things a little bit, it looked, over the weekend against Millwall, but ultimately to no avail, and it now means it's 5 defeats in 6 for Watford. On contrary to that, the Swans made it back-to-back wins for themselves. Really good result for them over Blackburn over the weekend. We spoke about one of the issues that Swansea were having in recent weeks was the amount of goals they were conceding early on. They managed to flip that script over the weekend though, and a couple of early goals themselves against Blackburn ultimately managed to get them over the line in that game. With how ridiculously tight things are at the bottom end of the Championship, Swansea can't afford to let off from here. They need to carry on and keep this momentum building, but with a decent run of fixtures on the horizon for Swansea right now, I think I probably would back them to put together a few more consistent results. And I think I'm fancying them to make it 3 wins on the bounce in this one. Score prediction for me here, going to go 2-1 Swansea on the road there. And then to finish off the weekend with QPR going up against West Brom, a game which I'm expecting to be really quite tight. Neither of these sides are losing many football matches right now. QPR, since Cifuentes has come in, there's been a remarkable upturn in form. Saw a really interesting stat on Twitter before recording today as well, where since Cifuentes has come in at QPR, only Leeds and West Brom have conceded less goals than they have, which is a massive testament to their monumental coaching job that's gone into making that QPR side a lot more solid in recent weeks. And we saw that in evidence over the weekend against Leicester as well. Really had to battle in moments of that game with how much of the ball and how many chances Leicester crafted out, but QPR took their moments when they came along, and I think it'll be a similar sort of approach in this one against West Brom as well. A baggy side who are going very well right now. Of the 2 playoff spots that probably are still up for grabs, I think that West Brom are looking most nailed on for that 5th place spot at the moment, particularly with their excellent record at the Hawthorns. With all that being said, I do think there's a potential they drop points in this one. Score prediction for me, going to go for a 1-1 draw between these two. I think it'll be tight. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to get all your score predictions in the comments down below. Some massive games coming up over the midweek period, and I want to hear from you guys about them. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.